The hangar was silent except for the sound of rain pelting the metal roof. Under the dim yellow lights, a group of engineers stood around an AH-64 Apache gunship, the pride of the U.S. Army, now grounded, powerless, and eerily quiet. Its twin engines, once roaring symbols of might, sat cold and lifeless. For 3 weeks, top engineers and aviation mechanics had tried everything. They had replaced circuits, reprogrammed the FADEC system, and tested every line of the powertrain. But no matter what they did, the left engine wouldn't start. The Apache belonged to the 3rd Combat Aviation Brigade, stationed at Fort Liberty. And it wasn't just any helicopter, it had been the personal aircraft of Captain Daniel Hayes, one of the most decorated pilots in the Army before his death 6 months ago in Afghanistan. His loss had shattered the unit. Commander Colonel James Rourke, a battle-hardened man with 30 years of service, watched his team in silence. He wasn't just frustrated, he was haunted. That Apache had carried Daniel on his final mission. Now it refused to come back to life, almost as if the machine itself mourned its pilot. The mystery of the silent engine. Sir, Chief Engineer Marcus said, rubbing his forehead. We've cross-checked the entire system. No mechanical issue, no data fault. It's like the engine doesn't want to respond. Colonel Rourke frowned. That's not a technical diagnosis, Marcus. I know, sir, but we've done everything. It's not following the manual. It's different. The colonel turned toward the Apache, the black fuselage gleaming under the lights. He knew this helicopter wasn't just hardware. Daniel had poured his life into it, every mission, every hour of flight, every scar from shrapnel repaired by his own hands. And now, the bird wouldn't fly. Then the colonel's eyes shifted toward the old photograph pinned on the wall, Daniel standing beside his wife, Laura Hayes, an aerospace engineer who had once worked for Boeing, helping design the very engines the Apache used. A thought came to him, half desperate, half instinct. Call the widow, he said quietly. The room froze. Sir, Marcus asked, uncertain. Call Laura Hayes. Tell her I need her here. The widow arrives. Laura arrived the next morning, her brown hair tied back, eyes tired but composed. She hadn't set foot on a base since Daniel's funeral. The soldiers who saw her stood a little straighter, everyone knew who she was. Colonel Rourke, she said softly, extending her hand. Laura, thank you for coming. I wouldn't have asked if it wasn't critical. Her eyes shifted to the Apache, and for a moment, emotion flickered across her face. That was his bird, she whispered. I used to joke that he spent more time with it than with me. The colonel nodded. We can't get it to start. We've tried everything. You helped design the T700GE701C engine, didn't you? Yes, she said quietly, walking closer. Every line of that engine has Daniel's fingerprints on it. He used to tweak things himself, tiny calibrations no one noticed. Maybe that's why your standard protocols aren't working. She climbed up the maintenance ladder and placed her hand on the engine cowling, almost tenderly. Hey old girl, she murmured, let's see what you're hiding. The challenge. For the next 48 hours, Laura worked tirelessly. She pored over Daniel's old flight logs, maintenance notes, and the modifications he'd made during missions. She ran her own diagnostics, using a small, battered laptop that still had his name etched on the back. At one point, Marcus approached her. Ma'am, we've been over all that. We ran every system test. Laura didn't even look up. You ran the standard procedures. But Daniel never followed the standard. Late that night, she discovered something, an obscure override code buried deep in the engine's digital interface. It wasn't in any manual. Daniel must have added it himself as a safety failsafe, a way to manually reset the fuel flow in case of an emergency shutdown midair. But it required a specific authorization phrase, a voice command code. And Daniel had never shared it. Laura's heart sank. The machine literally needed his voice to come alive again. The emotional breakthrough. At dawn, Colonel Rourke found her sitting in the cockpit, staring at the controls. It needs his voice, she said softly. He locked it that way. Only Daniel could start it after a full emergency shutdown. Rourke exhaled slowly. Then it's over. We can't bring him back. Laura's eyes glistened with tears. Maybe I can. She remembered something. Late nights when Daniel used to record his training logs at home. She still had his old voice memos stored on her phone. She found one labeled, Engine Check, Pre-Flight Routine. Her hands trembled as she connected the phone to the cockpit interface. Through the static came Daniel's voice, steady, calm, confident. Greater than, system check complete. This is Captain Hayes, Apache 2-1 ready for ignition. Let's fly. The engine lights flickered. The sound of fuel pumps engaging filled the hangar. Then, with a thunderous roar, the left engine came alive. Mechanics shouted, startled. Sparks flared as the rotors began to turn slowly, power coursing through the machine like blood returning to a heart. Laura covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. The colonel stood frozen, staring at the helicopter roaring to life as if Daniel himself had just walked back into the room. The resolution. When the engine stabilized, Laura powered them down carefully, wiping her eyes. Marcus whispered, I can't believe it, he built a machine that listened only to him. Laura smiled faintly. It wasn't just a machine to him. It was part of who he was. He once told me, as long as my Apache flies, I'll never really be gone. Colonel Rourke placed a hand on her shoulder. He was right. The Apache was later recommissioned as Hayes' legacy, flown only for ceremonial missions and training exercises. Every pilot who took its controls knew the story, that it once refused to start until love, memory, and loyalty brought it back to life.